Hey, welcome to the Simple Nutrition Podcast, a show that helps you learn practical and actual nutrition tips from an expert. I am your host, Leonila Campos, a registered dietitian with over 8 years of experience in the nutrition field. Hey, welcome back to another episode in the Simple Nutrition Insights Podcast. I am your host, Leonila Campos, registered dietitian, and today I have a fellow dietitian, Sarah Bush. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of food tracking. And so Sarah works in a private practice and she helps women in the age of 30 to 55 with weight loss and reverse dieting. So what a great topic to talk about. But I usually like to start, first of all, welcome Sarah to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you as well. And so what I usually like to start with is the reasons why you became a dietitian, right? Like what made you decide to become a dietitian?
Okay. Yeah. So I actually have a very non-traditional story, I feel like. I actually had no idea what a dietitian was for the longest time. I was a senior in college studying environmental studies, and I was just helping a friend lose weight for a hobby. Healthy eating and exercise has always just been kind of like hobbies for me. So I was helping him out, and he was like, Sarah, you're really good at this. You should do this for a living. And I'm like, how can I do this for a living? This is just a hobby. How do I make money from this? And he was like, I don't know, maybe you should become a dietitian. And I had no idea what a dietitian was. So I actually had to Google it. And I researched it, and it sounded really cool. So then I ended up talking to the college I was going to at the time, the dietitian there, and kind of getting the spiel on the career and what I would have to do to become a dietitian. And that's just kind of where my journey began. Yeah, so I ended up graduating with an environmental science degree before I even started with nutrition. It's been a long journey for me, but it's been a great one.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? That you were doing something just to help somebody, right? And you're like, this is something that I can build a career.
Totally crazy how things work out.
And that you actually went for it, right? That's pretty awesome that you were able to do that and talk to whoever you needed to talk to, right? To find out more about it. And yeah, so how has that been, right? For you once you became a dietitian, right? To now, how you describe your journey as a dietitian?
Yeah. So, after completing all the years of school, and the dietetic internship and everything, I basically tried out so many different careers in dietetics because I really wasn't sure, exactly what I wanted to do yet. So I worked with public health with WIC. And I also worked at the hospital, and I also worked for a long-term care rehab facility. So a bunch of different things. I also did outpatient medical nutrition therapy as well, for about a year. So I really liked working with people one-on-one. I really liked that. The schedule at the place that I worked at was really tough to kind of keep up with. So I got burnt out pretty quickly. But when I found Brooksoap Nutrition, where I work for now, I had the flexibility of making my own schedule, but still working one-on-one with people and really making a difference. And it's so rewarding, and I love it. And like you said, I primarily work with sustainable fat loss or reverse dieting, and I just really enjoy the impact that the impact that I'm bringing to people's lives.
Yeah, amazing. It's so cool, right? That dietitians can do so many roles, right? Pretty much anywhere where food is found, right? We can be part of it. We can find a job there, and so it's not like, oh, we just work at the hospital, right? Or we just take care of the food that you don't like, right? When you're at the hospital, we can do so many things. And I think that is the amazing part of being a dietitian, that we can do a lot of things. Also because our journey of becoming a dietitian, right, is not something simple, right? We have a degree now. Most dietitians have a master's, right? Now it's required to have a master's. And then we do a really long internship. And then we have to keep up with our education, right? Have our units. And so we are legit people. We have credentials.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So definitely focusing now on the food tracking aspect of it. And it's interesting because I interviewed another dietitian, Alyssa Fields, who talked about, so she created this platform, food tracking platform and app. And so we talked about that, and we talked about how important it is to track, right, for awareness, but also to know as dietitians what feedback to give, right? So in your case, right, I think the first thing would be like, how would you describe food tracking, like what that is, right? And then we'll go into the importance of food tracking.
Yeah. So food tracking is when you use an app like MyFitnessPal, or we use Practice Better at Brooksoap Nutrition. But basically, you just go in and you track your intake, and you try to accurately report like the brands and the serving sizes and all that, just so we can kind of get like an accurate picture for like what your intake is. Are you eating above your maintenance range? Are you eating below your maintenance range? Are you eating enough protein? Are you getting enough healthy fats? Are you eating too low carb? These are all kind of things we can see when you track your macros.
Awesome. Yeah. And so why is that important? Like why people should care about tracking their food?
It's good data. It's good data to have. I think that most people should track their intake for at least a week, just to kind of get more awareness around the food they're eating. It's just a good check-in. And I do think most people could benefit from just taking the time to track their intake, like I said, for at least a week, just to kind of get a feel for what they're actually eating.
Yeah. And I think it is so important to be aware of what we eat, right? Especially we have specific goals, but even if we don't have maybe weight loss goals or body recomposition goals, but just from a nutrition standpoint, right? Like exactly knowing that, oh, I'm adding a variety of foods, or maybe, oh my gosh, I'm every single week and week after week, I'm just eating broccoli and ground beef, right? And so looking at that data, right, can give us a lot of information. And then as dietitians, right, we can use that information. So for example, in your case that you work with women that are wanting to lose weight, right? How important is the food tracking in this aspect?
Oh, it's so important. Oftentimes you hear the advice to eat less, move more when you want to lose weight. But if a woman or a person in general is eating below their maintenance range, then they really shouldn't eat less and move more. They need to work on repairing their metabolism. And to do that, they need to actually eat more food. So that's where, macro tracking for what I do just comes in handy, because, I'm able to see like, okay, do we actually do need to maybe eat a little less, or do we actually need to eat more? Like people never think that like they might have to eat more to see body recomp changes.
Awesome. I love that you mentioned that, because with everything that we hear in social media, with everything that we hear in like the weight loss industry, right, is all about eat less, right? If you want to lose weight, you need to eat less. But you bring up a really important point, right? Like if someone is already eating below their maintenance point, right, or below their basal metabolic rate, or whatever that case may be, like bringing the calories even more is not going to help, right? Like it's just not going to help. And so, like for someone that maybe is learning about that, why is it important to eat more if they're already eating less, like they're not eating enough?
So it's important to eat more, because if you're already kind of eating below your maintenance range, if we took your intake even lower, it's going to be really hard to sustain. Like if you're already, let's say your maintenance range is 1,800 calories, but you're already eating that 1,200 calories and your body is used to you eating that little amount of food. In order to lose weight from that, we would have to cut you down to like 1,000 calories, which, it's really hard to get adequate nutrition. First off, eating 1,000 calories may be impossible. And it's going to really suck to eat only 1,000 calories per day for a long period of time to lose the weight that you want to lose. So what we do instead is called a reverse diet, where we gradually increase your intake over time and kind of repair your metabolism. I like to say like your metabolism is like a fire. So if you put logs in a fire, it's going to burn brighter. So your metabolism is going to be faster. You're going to burn more calories. But if you take the logs away, the fire goes out. So kind of same thing. Like if you were to eat less food, then your metabolism slows down. So, and that's called metabolic adaptation. So what we're trying to do is gradually increase your metabolism so you're at a place where your body is happy. And we keep you there for 3 to 6 months before we actually attempt the calorie deficit to lose weight or lose fat.
Awesome. I love that. Right. And I don't think really anybody knows that specifically, right? Because when someone says, oh, I want to lose weight, right, and focus on that, the first thing to do is like, let's cut your calories, right? Even lower. And one, you're already probably not eating enough and you're probably going to be more miserable. And like you said, the sustainability of it, right? Like who can survive with like just 1,200 calories? I mean, I'm sure we can survive, but like that is just really difficult, right? Like maybe a 3-year-old. And I think my 3-year-old eats more than that. So
Yeah,
that is
I'm
really
sure.
difficult. Right. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to like when you have, like if you have these weight loss goals, right, that you really look at what you want to do, right? And in this case, and sometimes it could be just that simple as to, okay, let's be aware of where our calories coming from, how much calories we're consuming, right? And the types of calories, types of foods that we are eating. And so based on that, right, we can help and provide some feedback. And so,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
I was going to say too, like a common thing that I see with my clients as well is that they'll be eating quote unquote really well Monday through Friday, but then Saturday and Sunday they just kind of eat like whatever they want to, and they don't understand why they're not seeing progress or they're not seeing weight loss on the scale. And it's because they're eating so much on the weekends that's pulling them out of their calorie deficit, and all the hard work that they put in Monday through Friday was pretty much just a waste of time. So that's another reason why, tracking can be really valuable, because then you can see like, wow, like, I didn't think I was doing so bad on the weekends, but I'm actually eating like 2,500 calories when I should be eating 1,700 calories. So I think it's just a good, like, eye-opening tool. And I know it can be a burden at first, but it does get easier the more that you track, because you can actually like save the meals that you eat often, and save the recipes that you also cook often as well. So the more that you use it, the easier it gets.
Right. Yeah. Such a great point about the weekend, right? Because we might think like, what is like the weekend? Like, how is the weekend really going to affect my progress if I'm like, quote unquote, eating so good during the week, right? But when we think about, if we count Friday, right? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as part of the weekend, and we just start on Friday, that's like what, a third of your entire week, a third of your progress is going to be during those 3 days, right? And so it can make a huge difference for sure. Like you said, if you're eating 2,500 calories when you're supposed to be eating, I don't know, 1,700 calories, that's a pretty big jump, right? And that could be, that can definitely be like a balance, or like you're not seeing progress at all, right? Or you're seeing the scale go on the opposite way.
You're just kind of like on this hamster wheel, and not seeing any progress at all.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is also really good, right? Like where the food tracking really helps, because in our minds, right, as humans, we feel like, oh, like I'm not eating even that much, right? But maybe that meal that you're consuming is really high in calories, right? Or like, no, I'm not, like I'm only, I don't know, I don't really like this word, but I'm only doing a cheat day, right, on Sundays, but that cheat day is like over 3,500 calories or something like that, right?
Right.
And so I think that awareness really helps. And knowing, right, like the data is not going to lie, unless if you like, inputting the data, but it's
exactly.
not going to lie. Right. Yeah. Awesome. And so you did mention, right, it can be bothersome or like a lot of work at the beginning when you're trying to track. So what are some of the tips that maybe you have given your clients, or that you can provide to the listeners that have tried tracking in the past, but they're like, oh, this is too much?
Yeah. So the two apps I'm familiar with are MyFitnessPal and Practice Better. So with MyFitnessPal, to kind of make tracking easier, what you can do is you can actually you can save meals. So if you track like all of these ingredients, maybe like in a sandwich or something that you really love with the side, whatever, you can like name it like Sarah sandwich and chips, and it'll go into your My Meal. So the next time you have it, you just like click on it and it auto-populates the whole meal, which is really nice. There's also a copy and paste feature as well. Like if you eat the same thing for breakfast all week, you can just copy and paste, from Monday through Friday, like all your breakfasts. And so stuff like that makes it tracking easier. Practice Better, you can also copy and paste meals, which is great. They also have a recipes function. So if you, make this particular recipe for dinner every week, you can just go ahead and put it in, save. So now it's there. So every, I don't know, Wednesday night when you make that dinner, like you just pop it in. Also, what I like about Practice Better, I'm not sure if MyFitnessPal can do this too, but I know in Practice Better, you can create a new food. So I'll tell my clients, like, look, if you are making a recipe from something online and it's giving you the macros per serving, just go ahead and like create it, like click create a new food, label it the name of that recipe, put the serving size and then the macros in and save. And then that kind of saves you from actually having to input every single ingredient in the recipe, which can be really time consuming. So those are kind of my quick tips for tracking. Also too, like, I know I have clients that'll ask me like, okay, like, I like that idea of just creating new food, putting in the macros from the recipe, but how do I know that I'm getting, if it serves 6, how do I know I'm getting 1/6 of the recipe? And so what I tell them to do is, especially if it's like a one pot meal or something that's easy that you could just kind of dump in a bowl, I recommend to just like dump the whole thing in a bowl, like on a scale that's been zeroed out, and then get the weight of the whole dish in grams. And then let's say it's 6,000 grams. So then you're just going to divide by 6, which would be 1,000. So, if you scoop out 1,000 grams, you're getting 1/6 of the recipe. So that way, that is pretty dang accurate that you're getting those macros from the food that you're eating.
Yeah, that's genius. I love that. I didn't know that. So thank you for sharing that. And it's super simple, right? Like if it's like if you're batch cooking too, right? And you're making your meals for the entire week, that's one of the ways to accurately portion out your food, but also track it, right? And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love batch cooking. I feel like that's such a good hack.
Right. Yeah, because it saves so much time and you can just like get it done in that period of time and not have to worry about like cooking every single day, right? Which some people can't really have that time. So that's a great idea. And then also that you mentioned, right, that, once you have your meals, because we almost eat the same food on a consistent basis, right? So if you already log it in, right, if you track it, it's going to be there. You just have to find it and then just do a quick click, right, or a swipe or whatever, and it's going to show for that day. And so, yeah, those tips are great, right? It's not. So if you were to say, right, once you got going and you have all your foods, like how long does it take to track, your meals in a day?
So the last time I tracked myself personally was before my wedding. And what I would do is I would actually pre-track for the day before. And I was in a calorie cutting phase prior to my wedding. So I was trying to lose weight and cut calories. So what I did was I would just at night, after dinner, I'm just sitting on the couch winding down for the day. I would just go ahead and track for the next day and just pop it in. And after you've been tracking for, I would say 2, maybe 3 weeks, I was able to pre-track for the next day, probably within 5 to 10 minutes, especially if I had meal prep my lunch and I knew what I was going to eat for lunch, Monday through Friday, and breakfast, I already knew what I was going to eat because I have 3 things that I kind of rotate between. So truly in my snacks, I knew what my snacks were going to be as well. So truly the only thing that I had to kind of figure out was dinner, so I would track everything. I would track breakfast, lunch, snacks, and then leave dinner open. And then when me and my husband decided what we're going to have for dinner, I would then put it in and then just play around with the serving sizes to make sure that it fit my macro goals. So, I really didn't spend a lot of time in the apps tracking, which I think can really bother people. They're like, oh, I feel like I'm always in the app. Every time I eat something, I have to go to the app. And I'm like, well, if you actually planned or pre-tracked, that really cuts down on the time that you're in the apps, and you feel like you're still just living your normal life.
Right. And another thing that comes to mind, right? If you are pre-logging in your food, right? Now you kind of have your day planned out as to what meals you're going to have. And so it helps, right, with that keeping track of things, right? Versus oh, I'm having that and I'm having that and all kinds of things. Or I don't even know what I'm going to have for lunch, right? And so then that in itself is another issue. But if you already log it or pre-log it the day before, right, or the morning of or whatever, then you already kind of know, and your brain also expects, okay, that's what we're going to have. And there's no challenge there, right? Trying to think about what to eat or figure out what you're going to have for those meals. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a great tip, right? And like you said, once you get the hang of it, right, it takes, a short period of time to log in those foods. And yeah, you can do it when you're lounging on the couch, right? Or, just hanging around.
Do it in your spare time. So that way it's not such a pain, And I like to tell my clients too, like tracking is temporary. It's not like you have to do it for a lifetime. It's just the season, especially while you're working, with a nutrition professional and we're trying to help you out the best that we can. So I think knowing too that it's not long term, that's truly just temporary is also helpful too.
Right. Yeah. I think that's absolutely a great point, right? Because then they know, okay, we're doing it for a short period of time. It's just for data, obtaining that information. And then I don't have to do it again, right? But then at the same time, while you're doing it, right, they're establishing these goals, these healthy habits, which are going to help them long term and sustain, whatever it is, whatever goals that they have, they're going to be able to sustain them, right? Because they have built these habits too. And so,
yeah. And I also like to say, pay attention to how food looks on your plate, when you're tracking. So that way, you kind of know what portion sizes you need. So when you stop tracking, you can just you can eyeball more accurately what you need on the plate versus having to track to make sure that you're getting enough.
Right. Those visuals, right, that really help. Yeah, they're really good once you know exactly how food looks like, right? The portions and the amounts. Then you have that visual aspect of it too. Okay, so what do you do when you have somebody that is just so resistant to tracking, right? That it's going to help them, right, for the awareness. But what are some of the tips that you would give someone, or that you have given someone that is just so resistant to tracking?
So I guess different approaches I could take on that. So first being okay, do we just need to track for a little while to see that's really not that bad? I think macro tracking for some people, it just kind of leaves a bad taste in their mouths. But once they do it, it's oh, this really wasn't that bad. So I do recommend just giving it a try. And if they're still kind of resistant towards macro tracking, then I'm okay, how can we make it easier? Do we need to meal prep something, or do we need to have a couple of breakfasts that we rotate between? Just to kind of make, tracking easier. So then we might come up with breakfast ideas to rotate between, or lunch ideas, dinner ideas, whatever it is. Another trick that I like to teach my clients too, for dinner ideas, it's maybe every night has a theme. Monday night's Italian, Tuesday night is tacos, Wednesday night is stir fry. Every day has a theme. So that way, when it comes to planning your meals for the week, you kind of have an idea of recipes to look for or just to narrow down. And so if coming up with meal ideas and just giving it a go doesn't work, then I also recommend to just take pictures of your meals, because I can still see a lot from meal photos. I can see, are you prioritizing protein? Are you prioritizing vegetables? Are you drowning your food in a sauce, or a lot of butter? And I can kind of see what your portion sizes look like. So at the very least, I do recommend at least taking meal photos. But just know that when we do the meal photos, there's really no way for me to just visually tell what your total calorie intake is, what your total protein intake is, which is very important to know. But we can still do a lot with the meal photos at the very least.
Right. Yeah. Great points. And at least having some kind of data, right? Because otherwise, how are you going to be able to provide that feedback, right, and your recommendations if we don't have something to, base our responses on, right? So, and of course, I'm sure you want the best for your clients, and you want to make sure that you're supporting them as the best as you can. But they also have to provide that information for you, right, to be able to support them. Let's see. Yeah, awesome. So the next thing, right, because you don't only work as a private practice dietitian, right, and helping women with their weight loss goals, but you on your Instagram, you also have you do Tasty Tuesdays, and I love that. I actually look forward to seeing a new product that you're going to feature. And so, can you tell the listeners about your Tasty Tuesdays? What are they about?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram page. My handle is at Busy Babe Nutrition, but each week on Tuesdays, I do a segment in my stories called Tasty Tuesday. And basically each week what I do is just, I find a food item that's new or something that my clients have asked me about. And I give it a try on my stories, and I just tell my followers and clients basically what I think, if it tastes good or do I feel like it's a nutritional product, things like that. And the reason why I do the Tasty Tuesdays is because, And I'm sure you get this all the time, Leo. Like people always ask, like, what do I eat? I feel like that's the number one question I get asked all the time. Like, they want snack ideas and, like this and that, like they just want ideas. So the whole reason behind Tasty Tuesday is to just kind of give people ideas of what they can shop for to kind of help reach their health goals.
Yeah, awesome. And you're right. Yeah, a lot of the times they ask me like, "What do you eat?" Right, but keeping taking it back to them, right? Like, no, this is about you, and let's focus on you. But I think giving them some ideas, right, as to like what foods we see as dietitians, and that we assess them, and now you're doing the tasting, right? Okay, let's see how this one tastes, right, and like how it looks nutrition wise. It gives the viewers, right, and your clients an opportunity to see, oh yeah, that's a great product, right, nutritional speaking, and also taste wise, right?
Right. I know a lot of these nutritional products are so expensive too. It sucks to have to spend $20-$30 on something to find out that it tastes bad. So I feel like that's where Tasty Tuesday comes in handy. Like, I'm going to try it for you so you don't waste your money.
Right. Perfect. Have you found, I don't think I've seen any in your stores, but have you found any products that you were like, oh no, this is not what I was expecting?
So I've been doing Tasty Tuesday for about 2.5 years now. And I have had some fails. Some things that kind of come in mind. I did try like this keto cereal that was absolutely terrible. It tasted like styrofoam. It was really bad. I won't say the brand on here, but I got it from Target. And then another product that I tried, it's actually funny. I thought it was going to be a protein donut because that's what it said on the box and it had a picture of a donut. And I got it from Walmart and I was like, oh, a protein donut. This sounds cool. And I literally opened the box on camera and they were just protein bars. And I felt like the biggest idiot because I thought for sure that they were going to be donuts. So that was embarrassing. And they also didn't taste good either. So bad protein bars. So those are the two that really come to mind, but I have had a few fails. I think there's also like a protein chip that I didn't like as well. It kind of had a really weird aftertaste. So you got to be careful with like high protein products because sometimes they can have a weird protein aftertaste or just be really dry. So just have to be cautious.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. But hey, Sarah is trying them for you, so you don't have to try them.
I'm taking
for
one for the team here.
Awesome. And so
I will say too, I do have a highlight of Tasty Tuesday wins and fails. So if you do follow me, you can look at the highlights and see like what have the fails have been.
Yeah, I have to go back to those because I'm sure when you're on camera, you're like, what? Like, what do I do now? Right? Do I laugh or do I cry? That's a funny one. That's okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you can. I'll put all that information where to find Sarah right in the show notes. But any additional tips that you want to give to the listeners, or any additional information when it comes to food tracking, right? Like if that is something that they want to do, or maybe they never thought about food tracking, right? Like maybe some final tips that you want to provide.
Yeah, I think it's just good data to have. Don't be honest with yourself, like track honestly. And no one's going to judge you for it, especially if only you're seeing it. But like us as nutrition professionals, we've seen it all. Like I'm never going to judge whatever you log, but just log it because it's good information to have. And I like to tell clients this too. Like if you have a moment where you do really overeat something, what I can see is like, well, maybe you just didn't fuel yourself well enough during the day. And that's what caused, for you to overeat towards the end of the day. So like, just log it, track it, because I'll be able to see, and you as well, any dietitian should be able to see the trends and realize, well, okay, you're having really small breakfasts or maybe no breakfast at all. And then a really little lunch. And then, when you get home, you're going to eat the whole pantry. And that's just because you didn't fuel yourself enough during the day. And your body's like, hey, we're hungry. Give us food. And carbs is quick energy for the body. So that's why we crave carbohydrate. And that's why you raid the pantry and you eat everything. So don't feel ashamed or guilty for any of the habits that you have, because it's just good information for your dietitian to know and work on so you can improve on it.
Something that, I also look when I'm working with clients, right? How the trends, right, throughout the day, like how are your meals throughout the day? And sometimes skipping the meals, right? We might think, okay, I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat. But guess what's going to happen at the end of the day, right? We are going to overeat, and we're going to continue to eat throughout the evening because, like you said, your body is hungry and you're like, feed me up. And yeah, carbs are fast energy, and that's usually what our bodies are craving because we're losing energy here. And so I think that is also really important as dietitians to recognize, right, the trends, but also to like let clients know, right, that don't feel guilty if you're craving carbs, right? That's just a natural body wanting some energy, because sometimes I have clients that feel so bad because they ate bread, right? Or because they ate tortilla chips. And I think it comes with because of diet society, right? Or if they follow diets like keto diets or like no low carb diets, right? And carbs are bad. And so that alone is just a whole issue in itself. But I think,
I know
right?
That could be a whole podcast episode.
We might have to do that for sure. But definitely teaching clients, right? And I'm sure this is something that you do as well with your clients, that carbs are not bad, right? It's okay to have bread. Sometimes I have clients I eliminated bread and I love bread. And I'm like, I'm really sad because you don't have to eliminate bread, right? Like bread is not bad. It's not a bad food. So anyway.
I know.
I
know. And, I do see that a lot too in my clients. Like they're just not eating enough carbohydrates, but then once they are, they feel better. They have better energy. Their bowel movements are better. They're sleeping better. Like definitely don't be afraid of carbs. It's definitely, it's a macronutrient because we need it, so don't be afraid of it.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, we'll probably do another episode on that specifically because it's a big one.
It is.
Yeah, awesome. But definitely, right. Hopefully now that you listen to Sarah talk about the importance of food tracking and those tips to help you maybe track your food in an easier way, right? You see it as another tool to help you with your goals and not as something that like another task that you have to do. But it can give you so much insight, right? And if you're working with a dietitian, right now you guys can work together and figure out a plan that is going to work for you long term. So awesome, Sarah. Anything else that you want to provide? Anything else that you want to say?
I think that's it. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Misconceptions Nutrition or brookthedietitian.com. Perfect.
Yeah. And so I'll add all that information in the show notes. So again, if you're driving or busy, don't worry, you'll have that. Just head over the show notes and follow Sarah on Instagram so you don't miss the Tasty Tuesdays. Definitely go to the highlights to look at the fails, have a laugh there. But yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for taking this time to do this podcast with me. And then I'm sure we'll do another one in the near future.
Of course. This was so fun.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Remember to stay safe and stay healthy. I will talk to you and see you in another episode. Bye-bye for now. This podcast, the links and resources provided are for the purpose to educate only and are not a replacement for medical advice or nutrition therapy. I suggest you seek out the help of a trained professional to help you with your specific situation and needs.